Hi, my name is Rupert Gatti. I'm a fellow in economics at Trinity College, Cambridge. I'm also the co-founder of Open Book Publishers, which is a non-profit open access scholarly book publisher. And I'm really delighted today to be able to talk to you about Thoth, which is a open metadata database management system and dissemination service that I've been involved in developing as part of a broader COPEM project, which has been a 3-year project funded by UKRI and Arcadia. I do have some slides to share, so let me do that. So just a little bit of background. For open book publishers or for any small open access book publisher, it's one thing to make works open access. The second is to make them discoverable and to get them out to as many different platforms and places where people can access them as possible. And that can be problematic for a small publisher. So at Open Book Publishers, for example, we distribute our content to about 30 different platforms. And most of those platforms require the metadata and the content to come in slightly different formats, specifically the metadata in different formats, slightly different ways. And this can be problematic to be able to generate and maintain all these various different types of metadata outputs that are required for all the various distribution channels. So this aspect of the COPEM project was to say, well, can we develop a single database from which all of those various different metadata outputs can be generated, so that for a small publisher, all we need to do is put the data in once in one format, and therefore then be able to generate all of these other formats out from that to facilitate dissemination. So that is what Thoth is designed to do. Thoth is we've just set it up now as a non-profit community interest company, which is community owned and managed. It is at the very heart of it an open metadata database. So all of the metadata within it is open, and that we feel is important because it allows third parties to be able to interact and access the metadata that's being stored. It's open access, as I said, it's built specifically for OA books and OA book chapters. And it's open source. All the code, etc., is available on GitHub. So the basic idea is that one has a central database, and the first thing, of course, is for publishers to input data into that database, and that can be done through a user interface, which allows publishers to manage the creation of the metadata during the course of the book processing. Or it can be done through an API to an existing metadata management system that's there, or we can ingest bulk uploaded data in various formats, including Onyx. Once the data is in there, then the issue is, what do you do with it? And here we have presently several standardized formats of output that can be obtained for each book or collections or from the database. So just running through quickly, some of them, like Onyx, comes in multiple flavors. So here we have 4 different platforms, and there's many more actually that take Onyx. But all these 4 take Onyx in a slightly different format. And so we've got Onyx that's formatted in multiple different ways for multiple different platforms. One can output in CSV. KBART is widely used by places like ProQuest and EBSCO, OCLC. We've got a JSON format, but another standard is BibTeX, which is used in Zotero and Mendeley. For publishers that want to submit MACDAI submissions to Crossref, one needs to create the metadata in a Crossref XML schema, which again we can output. And of course, librarians love MARC, and so we can generate multiple formats of MARC, including MARC 21 and MARC XML. So the first is a whole range of standardized formats that allow us then to be able to, as a publisher, we can take those formats and submit them to the various different platforms to get our metadata out. But also, Thoth comes with an open API, which means any third party can also access our database and build services from the metadata that is within Thoth. And so we've got several examples here to think about: publisher websites, catalogs, platforms, etc. So to take the first one is publisher website. So the Open Book Publisher's website is now, all of the metadata is drawn from the Thoth database. So all of the metadata that you see for each of our books, the titles, the authors, the blurb, all the various ISBNs, all of this metadata is being drawn from the Thoth database on the fly, in fact. And this website is itself can be made a white label site, so that any other publisher would be able to implement this if they wanted to. We also have a colleague of mine, of ours, Simon Bowie, as part of the Copen project, created a catalogue of all the scholar-led titles. So scholar-led is a collection of presses that you can see here, all open access presses. And he created a catalogue which is created on the fly for the collection as a whole, for individual presses, by date, and this can be extended to include by themes and subject areas, etc. We have platforms such as the Open Book Collective, which is another output of the Copen project, looking to develop a platform to collectively fund various open access publishers and service providers through collective library funding. And they are using the metadata in two different ways. The first, to be able to bring metadata about books onto the website so they can display the books that are being supported through the collective. And the second is to be able to query the database to see, for example, where authors for various books have come from, so that when approaching libraries about supporting publishers, they can go and say, well, you know, here are the scholars that have published with this collection of publishers, and so that they can question the database to be able to use it in that manner. So we can get lots of customized outputs from the database as users wish. We're also able to use the API to build connections between existing or developing infrastructure, open infrastructures that are around. So, for example, Science Open has developed an open book metadata database in Germany for the German Research Fund, and they have been able to create APIs to connect to Thoth, so that now users of the Science Open database can transfer data from one database to the other, but also they can extend, they've embedded the Thoth user interface into their interface so that the metadata can be enhanced through Thoth, and then all the extra formats that Thoth is able to provide are then available to the users of the Science Open site as well. And another one is the Koki Book Analytics Dashboard project, which is able to take metadata from books from Thoth to be able to match that against usage data that they're getting from various different platforms. And so again, they've been able to build an API to be able to draw that directly into their system. The other part of Thoth is that we are able to develop distribution services. So not only are we creating the metadata, but we can also provide the distribution service for a small publisher. So a small publisher, once they've got their content into Thoth, could then use our services to be able to disseminate the content to all the various platforms, and we can do that on their behalf. And an interesting subsection of that, which is growing into slightly bigger, is that we can distribute content to university repositories using university repository APIs. Now, those are not always well utilized, but one of the things that is allowing us to do is to build a network of repositories that can then host and archive OA content collectively. And that's something that is now technically possible. We've got proof of concept through the APIs of multiple different repository systems. Loughborough is, for example, a Figshare. Cambridge University is using DSpace, but there's a sort of management issue that many of these repositories have quite constrained collection policies, that they will only take works from individual authors from their universities. So one of the things is to be able to join these, if you like, open silos. they're open, you can access the kit, but they're silos in what they're hosting, to be able to join those together effectively to create an effective network using all those university repositories. So here is the basic structure of Thoth. We have a Thoth free, which we intend to make freely available, which is the ingest mechanisms and APIs, and the export APIs, so that publishers can ingest and output data freely through Thoth. But we would support that by services such as distribution services, archiving and preservation network, support and training, or help in ingesting the metadata if it's in bulk, etc. That those services we would provide at a fee for members. And so this is, if you like, a software as a service model where the heart of it is free, and we'd be looking to sustain that going forward by charging services for the dissemination and metadata management services. So, next steps. As I mentioned, we've been very lucky to have some extension funding for the next 3 years to allow us to expand and extend the scope and reach of Thoth. Our plans over that period, initially to improve our user interfaces, formalizing the Thoth offering and the business model, so that we have a robust and sustainable model going forward, which will involve both, as we said, software as a service on one hand, and also library collective funding through the Open Book Collective on the other. We're looking to expand the number of publishers using Thoth. As I mentioned, we've got 3 publishers, that's Open Book Publishers, Punctum Books, and Media Studies Press, who are using Thoth and have embedded that into their business, into their workflows. And we have about another 8 or 9 publishers who are bringing their metadata, presently bringing their metadata onto Thoth. But we hope to expand that considerably, both amongst Anglophone countries and beyond the Anglophone countries. So an important part now is also to extend the geographic and linguistic reach. There's nothing particularly about Thoth that makes it Anglophone, except that all the documentation presently is in English. So we'd like to be able to have more languages for those. And secondly, the data model itself has been built around our knowledge of Anglophone distribution systems and publishing world. It is likely to be the case that when we move beyond that, that there are aspects of the data model that are going to need revision as we have metadata fields that are appropriate in particular regional settings. So we're looking to be able to extend those. We want to be able to enhance the interoperability with other open infrastructures. An example of that is an early deliverable will be a plugin for Open Monograph Press, so that'll be utilized within that system. And also, we're hoping to extend our network of libraries to include and create a network of national libraries that would be in a position to be able to host OA books collectively. So, exciting times coming up. Here are our contact details. Please do reach out to any of us. We now have a new product manager who's just started this week. That's Toby Steiner. Or reach out to either myself or Vincent, who have been leading the project up to this point. So, and we'd love to be in contact to talk about how we could engage more with the library publishing community. So thank you very much.